I was standing in a fish shop, I'd an hour or two to wait. The gentleman that kept the shop was filleting a skate. So I sang a little chorus for to pass the time away. And the big fat oyster growled at me and jumped out of its tray. It bit a lobster's leg off. And the fishman went so wild, he said, "Stop your singing, didn't you learn as a child?" Chorus. That annoys an oyster. But annoys an oyster more. When the west winds whistle through the whiskers of a shrimp, the poor old oyster feels a trifle limp. He'll murder mussels if the seaweed rustles or a cockle croaks a chorus from the shore. For annoys an oyster, but annoys an oyster more. I was cross with that young oyster, very cross indeed. So when his shell was open with being of the bulldog breed, I scoop him out and swallow him and say, "Now there, old thing, that'll stop you biting lobsters because I care to sing." But when in my interior he starts to loop, I shouted to a man nearby, "Don't gargle with your soup." For annoys an oyster, but annoys an oyster more. When the west winds whistle through the whiskers of a shrimp, the poor old oyster feels a trifle limp. He'll murder mussels if the seaweed rustles or a cockle croaks a chorus from the shore. For annoys an oyster, but annoys an oyster more. I was on a British warship back in 1917. No, not really. Our gallant friends beneath us saw a great big submarine. The captain said, "Now get your bombs and drop them fore and aft." And from below, the U-boat captain quickly telegraphed, "We're doing the surrender, please don't drop your bombs," he said. "They make such an awful noise, and we're on an oyster bed." For annoys an oyster, but annoys an oyster more. When the west winds whistle through the whiskers of a shrimp, the poor old oyster feels a trifle limp. He'll murder mussels if the seaweed rustles or a cockle croaks a chorus from the shore. For annoys an oyster, but annoys an oyster more.